Hello, Internet. It is that time again. It is, but it's kind of something else. If you've just joined us for the first time, welcome. My name is Rob. Whether you're here on YouTube, whether you're on Twitch, whether you're on Facebook Live, I'm just happy that you're hanging out with me for a few minutes tonight. I mean, as we tape this, does anybody tape anything anymore? As this goes out, it is Wednesday night, but if you're watching this as a replay or an encore, if you will, that's cool. Just glad that you're here. I'm actually the executive producer of a podcast called the Clubhouse Podcast, live on Thursday nights at 8 o'clock Eastern. So make sure you check out our social media outlets for that. The Clubhouse Podcast, unless you're on TikTok or X, formerly Twitter, then it's Clubhouse Show, your one-stop shop for all things sports and entertainment and professional wrestling. We do all of it. Pop culture, the whole thing. Myself, Alex Barnhill, and Don Ford. But this is kind of a side project I'm doing for 2024. As you saw in the title of this, we're doing the Tour de DC Animated Universe. There's a lot going on there. I'm trying to find a better name, but that's just what it's going to be for now. Shout out to StreamYard, which is where we do all of our streaming from. No free ads, but I always want to extol its greatness because it's been able to let me do things that you can't do on Zoom. So check out StreamYard if you are somebody that does live streaming. I'm a big fan. So hopefully, sponsor me. I'm cool with it. So what we're doing here in the year of our Lord 2024 is I'm going through the DC animated universe. I own most of the Blu-rays, and so I was like, I should probably watch some of them because some of them I've never put in the player. I have buy them with the intention of it, but I've never actually put some of these in the player. So what better way to do that than to at least once a week do this? Now, we've had what we call 2 prequel episodes where we talked about Batman Mask of the Phantasm. And we also talked about, there's another Batman one we did last week. No, we did another one last week. We did Mystery of the Batwoman last week. So we're getting into the list proper this week. So let's start talking about this week's. This week's movie that we will be talking about is the first official entrant into the DC animated universe, and it is Superman Doomsday. Now, this came out in 2007. It was released on September 18th, 2007. It is the very first Superman project to ever be rated PG-13. It was 15 months after Superman Returns, and I know we all try to forget that, but we have to remember our history. If you don't remember your past, you can't have a future. Michael Irvin once said that. So this is the first official film in the entire series. Now, there are 58 films by the time the end of the year comes, because I think there's 4 or 5 scheduled to release this year. We are doing those, I say we, by we, I mean me. We're doing those in release order. So the timeline's going to jump around a little bit, and that's part of how we're going to evaluate these as well. So let's get into, first of all, the voice cast for Superman Doomsday. In this particular case, Superman / Clark Kent, spoilers, is Adam Baldwin, who we all know from Firefly. Jane, I'm a big fan of this guy, and he does the voice very, very well. Tim Daly did it in Superman the Animated Series, and you'll see different people taking on different roles as this goes. As a matter of fact, it all changes with the next one that we're going to talk about here in a minute. Lois Lane in this particular one is played by Anne Heche, and I think that she does a very good job. The animation style for this is a little bit different than Superman the Animated Series, and Lois is the only character that I didn't buy as much from a visual standpoint. There were a couple of different angles for Superman that were a little weird for me, but overall, it's passable. We'll just put it that way. Lex Luthor was played by James Marsters, as you might remember from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Now, I actually found out by doing my deep dive into this Blu-ray, which is actually included, as you saw on the last episode we did, with the Death of Superman and the Reign of the Supermen double pack, which I have, which will come much, much later. But this particular Blu-ray is included on that. It was a special edition. But James Marsters was the original choice to play the Hal Jordan Green Lantern in Justice League. They could never quite get it together, but they did get him to play Lex Luthor here. It's also, this next one is a very, very small role, but I have to mention it because of who plays it. Toyman actually plays a role in this particular film that runs an hour 15, by the way. And this is the great John DiMaggio. And if you don't know who John DiMaggio is, just look him up on IMDb. The guy is one of the most prolific voice actors on the planet today. And he plays it's a different version of Toyman than we might be used to, as I've said before about other characters in this, but he does a very, very good job. And then we also have featured in this Martha Kent, played by Swoosie Kurtz. Now, if you know anything about the source material, which we're going to talk about here in just a moment, we have Ma Kent, but we don't have Pa Kent. There's a reason for that they don't really go into in this film because it's part of the story that kind of gets glossed over. But Swoosie Kurtz, great job playing Ma Kent in this. Now, another very small role in this, but we mentioned her last week. We have to mention her this week. Kimberly Brooks is in this very small role at the beginning where she plays Murphy, who is an agent of LexCorp. And we're going to kind of get into the plot line here in just a minute. We also have someone who is a very popular sitcom actress in the late 80s, early 90s, on a very, very big hit show called A Different World. And when her role there ended, she became a very, very prolific voice actor, playing roles like Elmira on Tiny Toons, for instance. And that is Cree Summer. Cree Summer plays Mercy Graves, who's kind of Lex's right-hand woman. She's not in the comics, but she was in Superman the Animated Series, where she was voiced by Lisa Edelstein. And I'm going to try to not give spoilers here because there's a lot going on in the story that there's elements that aren't in the source material that are put in here. And that's all I'm going to say about that. We also have the great character of Perry White, who of course is the editor-in-chief of the Daily Planet. In this case, played by the amazing Ray Wise. If you know who Ray Wise is, he was on Twin Peaks. He also played the devil in one of my very favorite short-lived shows of the late 90s, early aughts called Reaper. And they said he was always dressed to the nines because that's Ray Wise. I've never seen him not dressed up. And he's fantastic. Perry White, again, not a huge role in this, but he does a great job because he's Ray Wise. Also, we have Adam Wiley playing Jimmy Olsen. Now, you may see him and you may say, hey, man, he looks kind of familiar, but I can't place it. I'm about to blow your mind. He was the kid on Picket Fences. Go back and look up Picket Fences. He was and you're like, oh, that was him, because on the extras, he looks a little bit more like he did there because it was only like 10 years after, and we're now, way after the fact when it comes to Picket Fences. And the last person I wanted to recognize in the voice cast here is Tom Kenny, who plays the robot. And that's all I'm going to say. Because in Tom Kenny's in something, especially if it's animated, you got to talk to it. The guy was SpongeBob SquarePants. So he automatically gets the cred, right? So these are your major players and some minor players for Superman Doomsday. So now let's get into what exactly is happening with Superman Doomsday. Now, if you remember, in 1993, DC Comics killed Superman. Now, if that's a spoiler for you, I'm really sorry, but it's been 30 and a half years, because it was November 18th, I believe, of 1993. And there were some really cool things about that they talk about in this. It was a huge deal. I worked at a movie theater at the time, and 2 doors down from our movie theater, right next to our movie theater, was an ice cream shop. And next to the ice cream shop was a comic book store and then a record store. Maybe it's the other way around. I don't remember. But I remember working that day, and there was a line all the way down the plaza, almost around the corner to the Kmart, for people wanting to get their hands on the issue of Superman's death. It was a huge deal. I think I've got my copy around here somewhere. That led to a huge media event. And we'll talk a little bit more than that. So, but there were 4 distinct pieces to this. There was the death of Superman and the 4 issues, the 3 issues that led up to it. Then there was a chapter called Funeral for a Friend. Then there was a chapter called A World Without a Superman. And then there was The Return of Superman. This film really focuses on the bookends of the story and a little teeny bit of World Without a Superman, which I think is a very interesting choice, which is also why I think 12 years later, they went back and filled in the gap. Because for me, this story is involved with the entire thing. Now, granted, if you've ever seen the trade of the whole thing, it's about that thick. You could do some damage to somebody with the full trade of this thing. So I think that being the first foray into the DC animated universe, first of all, I thought this was a very bold choice to do this story. Secondly, I think that they were like, if it doesn't work, then we're cool, then we can just keep it moving. Since it took off, I'm glad they went back, and I'm looking forward to actually watching the other one when we get to it. And I may watch this again and see, maybe it's got branching in it, which would be awesome to branch the whole thing, and then we can see how it works out. But it focuses on these 2 pieces. Doomsday does not come in on a spaceship. He's actually been here for thousands and thousands of years and is discovered by LexCorp employees, which we talked earlier about one of those employees having a very small role in this. That's where it happens. He's still a killing machine, doesn't know right from wrong, just likes to get rid of things. Let me also say, this is not necessarily for the kids. There's a lot of adult content in this. I'm not going to say it's explicit because it's not, but it's just, there might be some questions you have to answer if you're an adult with the younger ones. I think preteen and above, probably YA. That's why this is PG-13 and not PG. But there's a lot of violence in it. They talk about a lot about, as we go deeper into this, that there was more blood than they would have been able to do on Cartoon Network. The shot you see on the left is actually referenced in it, which I really dug. We do reference the Superman that's on the right screen as well. This cost $3.5 million to make. Sales top $10 million. So you know where this was going. Like the success of this knew we were going to have more in the DC animated universe. And I will say, because they kept calling it direct to video, which technically you could say, but the Blu-ray transfer on this looks really, really clean. I was very impressed with both the audio and the video, since again, this was originally just released on DVD because Blu-ray was just starting to become a thing in 2007. Now, the disc itself auto-played. And because of that, I didn't have the opportunity to go through menus or select audio. I think the audio was a default. Rhonda, I see you there. Rhonda putting up there that she does love some Superman. As you know, I'm more of a man guy myself, but I respect Clark. Hello to you, my friend. So the violence, of course, comes with the territory here because of the nature of the story. The battle itself with Doomsday, I've always liked the way that was done because there's not a whole lot of dialogue. It's just these 2 entities, the unstoppable force versus the immovable object, just going nuts, and things end, of course, the way that it looks like they end. They kept the dialogue to the minimum and in that style, but there was a nod, of course, we talked about that with the image on the left, as well as the shot of Lois holding him. Now, there's a bit of a plot hole that happens in here that I thought maybe I'd missed something, but then it comes back and then it doesn't, and then it does. And again, I'm not going to ruin it for you, but you may find a very large piece of the story here and go, wait a minute, that doesn't seem right. Trust me, I think it was after the fact and they were just like, let's just roll with it. I like the design of the grave in the comics better. They just did a very large, dark Superman symbol, whereas I like it in the comics of Superman holding the eagle. I just thought it looked better. there might have been something in the Fortress of Solitude. There's a lot of references to other things that are from Superman going back to all the way in the beginning, which I kind of dug as well. But it was a very strange bit that the way that they did it. Let's see here. Next thing that we're going to look at, continuity. Since this is the first one, there's no continuity to worry about. So we're going to have a lot of jumping around until probably about a third of the way through the list when things start to get a little more linear, because going into the DC animated universe, there was a lot of unknowns. And so they didn't have to worry about, well, should we do more than one of these things that we can connect together? Right now, they just wanted to do some of the earlier stories, see how they worked out with each other, and go from there. So continuity, not a big thing. But again, 12 years later, they would go back and fill in the hole, and we'll deal with that when we get there. Now, unlike the two that came before it, this particular Blu-ray is chock full of special features, especially for a single disc. There's so much special features, I thought there'd be two. There's only one, and let's talk about it. There is a commentary track. The commentary track is with the amazing Bruce Timm, who is one half of the creators of Batman the Animated Series. Bruce Timm, Paul Dini. If you know the universe, you know those names. He co-wrote and produced, and the weird thing about, I wouldn't say weird, but the most interesting thing, one of the interesting things, this film had 3 directors, 3 distinct. One took the first half, one took the middle part, the other one took the ending. Bruce Timm directed Act 3 of this. Lauren Montgomery, whose name you'll hear in just a moment as well, she directed Act 2. Brandon Vietti directed Act 1. They're all on the commentary, along with Dwayne Capizzi, who co-wrote this with Bruce Timm. Andrea Romano, if you know that name, she is anytime at Warner Brothers has done anything animated, she's the one that does the voice casting and directing. I call her the richest woman in voiceovers because I first saw her name in an episode of Tiny Toons, and it probably goes farther back than that. Excuse me, my throat got kind of dry there. She's on the commentary, as is Gregory Novak, who is the senior vice president of creative affairs for DC Comics. So all of them together do the commentary for Superman Doomsday. And there's a couple of things I thought were very interesting here. One was it took them a little bit longer than they had anticipated to get the green light to do this story because it was the first one. DC and Warner Brothers did finally like, all right, if you're going to do this, go ahead and do it. We're cool. Also, the commentary, when they record it, it's the first time any of them have seen the finished product, which I thought was a really bold move, that they're getting to see it. Like, again, watch it without the commentary before it, because otherwise you're going to get a bunch of stuff spoiled for you. Any of the special features. You always watch the movie first, kids. Don't mess with the special features till you watch the movie. If you take anything away from today, that's it. Now, they all said, like, yeah, this is the first time I've seen it all together, which I thought was kind of cool, but they all knew of the pieces of it anyway. So for them, it's not that big a deal. For us, it kind of is. There are 5 featurettes on this particular disc. The first one is called Requiem and Rebirth. Superman Lives. I think I'm going to mess with the visuals on this on the next one. This is a feature-length, 60-minute-ish documentary, more about the comic story versus what's used in the film. Most of the special features here were filmed for the DVD and not up-converted, so you're going to deal with some picture quality issues there. But one of the things I did learn from this is that if you go back and you read the 4 issues that culminate with the death of Superman, each issue got less panels per page. So that first issue, there were 4 panels per page, then 3, then 2. And by the time you get to the ultimate issue, it's 1 panel per page and splash pages, which I thought was kind of a cool thing to learn. Also, behind the voice, it's exactly what it says it is. also filmed for DVD and not up converted. There's another one that's a little bit longer that's called When Heroes Die, the making of Superman Doomsday. I think at least it was filmed in HD because it looks a little bit better, but it's basically the origin story of how they got this thing up and running. Then there was The Clash of the Juggernauts, and that's more of an actual featurette, kind of a hype reel for the movie. Also on here, now these I did not watch because I was running out of time as I watched the disc, but there are actually, oh, nope, go back. There we go. I'm in the wrong computer. It should be over here. There are actually 4 episodes of Superman the Animated Series on this disc that are Bruce Timm's top picks. There is, I can never say Mr. Mixelplick, Mr. Mixel Pixelated. Y'all know who that is. Brave New Metropolis and the two-parter called Apocalypse Now. Those are also included in here. I believe they're probably in their entirety, so you could watch some of Superman the Animated Series if you don't have it. There are some trailers, none of them for this. One trailer / featurette is for the next film we're going to talk about the next time. This would become a trend. So you'd get one of the Blu-rays or the DVDs, and on that disc would be a little bit of a mention of a little featurette for what the next film would be. Rhonda says she loved Mixel Pixel on Supergirl. I've always thought it was an interesting villain, but Superman's Rogue Gallery was a strange thing. And they also talk about in the origin story, the Requiem, about why they had to create Doomsday because of the way Superman's Rogues Gallery worked. Other trailers on here is for Batman Gotham Knight, which will come up after the next one we're going to do. Also, Appleseed Ex Machina, which is an anime that they were also pimping at the time as well as a sneak peek at the first Wonder Woman animated feature, which will be coming up for us in just a few weeks. All right, so let's rank it. Well, it's the first one, so obviously it's going to sit at the top of the list. And maybe it'll be up there the next one. I doubt it, but we'll see. Honestly, I'm actually looking forward, as I said earlier, to getting to Death of Superman and the Reign of the Supermen, because I want to see the story in its entirety and see how they kind of fill in the gaps. I don't know why they didn't do the whole saga, but it's not terrible. It's not great, but it's not terrible. This will not sit at the top of the list very long. It's not going to fall to the bottom of the list, I don't think, but we'll have that, made up. That decision will be made for us at the end of the year. So now let's talk about what we're going to do next. And I don't want to say next week, because it might be next couple of days. You don't know. I don't know. It's just as soon as I can watch it. This next one, it was actually mentioned to be my very good friend Jason Rowe. He actually mentioned Mask of the Phantasm, but I already got that one. I'm hoping I can get a hold of him and he can come on and join me. So next time we are going to talk about Justice League: The New Frontier. This was based on a very short series that they actually talked to the writer in the featurette that's on the Doomsday disc, where it takes place in a World War I type era. I actually have, and I'm going to actually stop sharing so you can see it. I have the commemorative edition steelbook. It's just the steelbook. There's nothing else in there, but I will show you what the inside looks like because it looks kind of cool. I'm just going to show you that side because it's got the Blu-ray and the DVD. It's got all the credits on the inside. This is what the backside looks like. Now, I remember reading this. I actually read the source material here. Excuse me. And I absolutely loved it. I love the art style. That's got that 40s style to it. It's got a great story. We get everybody and their brother involved in this thing. And I'm very much looking forward to watching that. I will do my best to give you at least 24 hours notice before we do this. If you're watching on any of the places that you can do such things, like and subscribe and all the things, this is still a work in progress. So I'm still working on it. I'd love it if somebody could design me a logo for this thing that we could animate and do as a bumper on either side of that. That would be awesome. But we're just going to keep doing this. I love doing these kind of things. And maybe after this one, we'll figure something else out. I got a bunch of movies we can do this kind of thing with. So Until next time, thank you so much for hanging out. We're going to talk Justice League: The New Frontier very, very soon. So until next time, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, be the light, fight the darkness. Good night, everybody.